Kemi moved slowly, folding her late son's shirts with shaky hands. Each piece of clothing she touched felt like a painful memory, like saying goodbye all over again. Her heart was heavy, but she stayed quiet. In the background, laughter echoed through the house. Her daughter-in-law, Lami, was sitting with her friends, chatting and giggling like nothing had happened. Music played softly, as if the home wasn't still full of sorrow. Just a few days ago, they had buried Sefu, Kemi's only child, yet there was no sign of mourning, no candles, no tears, only smiling faces and loud conversations. Kemi stood in the corner, unnoticed, like she was just part of the furniture. The next morning, while she was still trying to adjust to the emptiness, Lami walked up to her with a straight face and sharp words. "You have 1 hour to leave this house," she said coldly. "This place was Sefu's, and now he's gone. You're not needed anymore." Kemi's eyes widened, but she didn't say a word. She had lived there peacefully, never thinking she would be thrown out like a stranger. Her heart cracked, but she kept her tears in. What Lami didn't know was something important. She thought the house belonged to Sefu, her late husband. She believed she now had the right to everything. But the truth, the house was never in Sefu's name at all. Long ago, before Lami came into the family, Kemi and her husband Ayatunde had built this house from scratch, brick by brick. And after Ayatunde passed away, Kemi made sure the house was put in her name, quietly, legally, without anyone knowing. She had simply allowed her son and his wife to live in it after they got married. She never thought it would be used against her. Now, Lami was celebrating freedom she thought she had earned. She believed Kemi was powerless, just an old widow with no place left to go. But Kemi knew the truth. She didn't shout. She didn't fight. She simply picked up her son's last shirt, folded it neatly, and placed it in the bag. While Lami smiled with pride, Kemi turned and walked out, heartbroken, but not defeated. Because sometimes, silence holds more power than shouting, and sometimes, the ones people push away are the ones who still hold the keys. Kemi looked around the house slowly, her heart full of memories. Every wall, every corner, every tile had a story. This house was not just a building, it was her life's work. Years ago, she and her husband, Ayatunde, had worked hard day and night to build it. They started with nothing, but together they made a home filled with love, laughter, and peace. It wasn't easy, but they were proud of what they created. After Ayatunde passed away, the house felt empty, but Kemi stayed strong. She made sure the property was put in her own name to protect everything they had built. It was a quiet decision, not shared with many. She didn't do it to show power or control. She just wanted to keep the home safe, for her son Sefu, for the family. When Sefu got married to Lami, Kemi welcomed her daughter-in-law with open arms. She gave the young couple the master bedroom and cooked special meals to make them feel at home. She hoped they would live together in peace and love, like she and Ayatunde once did. She never asked for anything. She just wanted to be part of their world. But things slowly changed. Lami started acting cold. She no longer smiled or greeted Kemi in the mornings. She whispered on phone calls and rolled her eyes when Kemi walked by. When Sefu was around, she behaved kindly. But the moment he left the room, her face would turn stiff. Still, Kemi said nothing. She believed that patience would bring peace. Then Sefu died suddenly, and everything fell apart. The love that held the house together vanished. Lami no longer hid her anger. She treated Kemi like a burden, like an old chair taking up space. The woman who once sat at the head of the table was now being pushed aside, like she didn't belong. It was painful, but Kemi stayed calm. She kept cleaning, folding clothes, and cooking small meals, hoping maybe things would return to normal, but they didn't. The day Lami told her to leave, Kemi finally saw the truth. In the eyes of her daughter-in-law, she wasn't family anymore. She wasn't even a person. She was just something that had come with the house, like an old lamp or a dusty curtain, something unwanted, something forgotten. As Kemi stepped out of the door with her small bag, she didn't cry, she didn't shout, but inside, her heart broke. Not because she lost a home, but because she had loved so much and been treated like she was nothing. She was a mother in her own house yesterday. Today, she was a stranger. Even before Sefu passed away, Lami had always felt something bitter in her heart toward Kemi. She never said it out loud in front of Kemi or Sefu, but deep inside, she was angry. She didn't like sharing the house. She didn't like how Kemi moved around the kitchen or sat quietly in the living room like she owned the place. To Lami, it felt like Kemi was always there, watching, judging, and taking up space. Behind closed doors, Lami told her friends, "That woman acts like a queen in this house. She hovers over everything. I can't even cook without her peeking into the pot." Her friends laughed and encouraged her, saying she needed to set boundaries. But Lami didn't dare say a word to Sefu, because Sefu loved his mother deeply. He would never let anyone disrespect her, not even his wife. Whenever Lami complained, Sefu would gently say, "Please be patient. My mother means no harm." And so Lami kept pretending. She smiled when Kemi served her food. She nodded politely during family talks. But in her heart, she was tired. She wanted her own space, her own rules, and her own life without Kemi in it. Then Sefu died. His death changed everything. Lami cried in public, but her heart was already thinking of something else. For the first time, she felt like she was free. Free from sharing, free from pretending, and most of all, free from Kemi's quiet presence. Now there was no one to stop her, no one to protect Kemi, no one to tell her no. She quickly made her decision. Kemi had to go. To Lami, it felt like the right thing to do. She told herself she was just making space, starting fresh. But deep down, it wasn't about space. It was about power. She wanted full control of the house, of the story, and even of how people remembered Sefu. She wanted to be the main voice, the center of attention. Kemi didn't fit in her picture anymore. When she stood in front of Kemi and said, "You're not needed here," there was no sadness in her voice. There was no kindness either, just coldness. She didn't feel guilty, not even a little. To her, Kemi was part of the past, just like old photos and old memories. But what Lami didn't know was that every wall in that house still whispered Kemi's name, and the story she thought she was controlling was never really hers to write. Kemi walked out of the house with only a small bag and a heart full of pain. She didn't cry or beg. She just walked quietly, her feet heavy with sadness. The house she once called home was now behind her. Her son was gone. The daughter-in-law she had cared for had thrown her out like she was nothing. Kemi didn't even know where to go, but something inside her said, "Just keep walking." She remembered an old friend, Mojisola, who lived in a nearby village. Years had passed since they last spoke, but Mojisola welcomed her with open arms. "Come in, Kemi," she said, holding her tightly. "You will not suffer alone." For the first time in days, Kemi felt a small bit of comfort. The bed was not hers. The room was small, but it was peaceful, and that was enough. The next morning, Mojisola took her to meet someone special, Mama Ireti. She was a kind old woman with bright eyes and a big heart. She ran a small shelter for women who had been abandoned, abused, or forgotten. The place wasn't fancy, but it was full of love and support. Mama Ireti listened to Kemi's story quietly, then placed a hand on hers and said, "You are not alone. You are needed here." At first, Kemi only came to visit, but slowly she started helping around. She cooked meals, swept the compound, and even helped fix old clothes. The women at the shelter looked up to her. Some were young and scared. Some had no families. Kemi started talking to them, sharing advice, listening to their pain. They called her Mama Kemi. Her heart, once broken, began to feel warm again. Each day, something inside her changed. She smiled more. She walked with purpose. She was no longer just someone who had been kicked out. She was becoming someone strong, someone needed. The pain of losing her son didn't go away, but now she had found a new reason to live. Mama Ireti noticed the change too. "You have a gift," she said one evening. "You know how to carry people with your words and your heart. Don't hide it." Kemi nodded. She felt it too. The past had wounded her, but it didn't destroy her. This shelter, these women, they gave her a second chance. And without even planning it, Kemi had walked into something much bigger than pain. She had walked into purpose. One month after kicking Kemi out, Lami decided to throw a big party. She called it a Freedom and Fresh Start celebration. The house was decorated with shiny lights, colorful balloons, and loud music. People came in large numbers, friends, neighbors, even some people who barely knew her. They danced, ate, and praised Lami for taking control of her life. Some even whispered, "She's so strong, moving on so fast." Lami wore a bright red dress and expensive jewelry. She walked around smiling, holding a wine glass, showing everyone she was now the madam of the house. "This is my home now," she said proudly. "No one can stop me." As the party went on, laughter filled the air. People toasted to her freedom. No one spoke of Seifu or how fast everything had changed. It was like his memory had been erased. Lami didn't seem to care. All she wanted was to shine in front of others. But while Lami laughed on the front lawn, something serious was happening inside the house. A quiet knock came at the door. A delivery man stood there holding a white envelope. He handed it to the housemaid and left without saying much. It looked like just another letter. The maid placed it on the center table and went back to the kitchen. No one noticed the envelope. No one knew that inside it was not just paper, it was power. The letter came from the land registry office. It was a legal document. It clearly said that the property at number 17 Oladale Street was still under the name of Kemi Ayotunde. The title deed had never been changed. The house Lami was dancing in, celebrating in, and calling hers, did not legally belong to her or her late husband. The letter sat quietly in the living room, surrounded by music, laughter, and people who didn't know the truth. Lami, busy showing off her new furniture and planning to redecorate the bedroom, had no idea that her world was about to shake. Outside, the sky started to change color. The sun was setting. The party was still loud, but something was shifting, slowly, silently. A truth was making its way in, waiting to be opened. And that white envelope, it didn't make noise, it didn't scream, but it held something stronger than all the cheers and music in that house. It held a reminder. Kemi had never left empty-handed. She still owned the home, even if she no longer lived inside it. One quiet afternoon, Kemi was helping Mama Ireti prepare food at the shelter. She had found peace in the little things, chopping vegetables, washing clothes, and sitting with women who shared their pain and strength. She had not thought much about the house she left behind. She just wanted peace. But that day, Mama Ireti smiled and said, "Kemi, there's someone I want you to meet." A few minutes later, a smart young woman walked in. She wore a simple dress and carried a brown bag filled with papers. Her name was Tarala. She was Mama Ireti's niece and a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one who believed in helping women who were treated unfairly. Tarella greeted Kemi kindly and said, "Auntie Kemi, I've heard your story, and I want to help you. That house still legally belongs to you. You don't have to let someone else enjoy what you built." At first, Kemi shook her head. "No, my dear, I don't want any drama or fight. I found peace here. Let Lami do what she wants." But Tarella gently replied, "Peace doesn't mean you stay silent when someone takes what is yours. This is not revenge. This is justice." Kemi thought about it deeply that night. She remembered how Lami laughed while kicking her out, how her son's memory was being erased in the house they built with love. She remembered the party, the music, the people clapping, while the walls of her home were turned into a show. The next morning, Kemi sat with Tarella. She said slowly, "Okay, let's do it. But I don't want shouting or fighting. I want everything done legally. I just want to stand for myself, with my head high." Tarella smiled. "That's exactly how we'll do it." Over the next few days, Tarella started collecting papers. She found the original title deed that had Kemi's name clearly written on it. She prepared documents and followed every legal step. Kemi was surprised how quickly things moved once the truth was put on paper. For the first time in a long while, Kemi didn't feel weak. She didn't feel old or forgotten. She felt strong, not with anger, but with quiet power. She wasn't doing this to punish Lami. She was doing this for herself, for her late husband, for Sefu, for every woman who had been told she didn't matter. She was ready to reclaim her name, not just on paper, but in dignity. Weeks after Kemi decided to fight for her home, a quiet morning turned into a moment that would change everything. Lami was inside the house, wearing her finest silk robe. She had spent hours getting ready, fixing her hair and makeup. Today, she planned to relax and enjoy her new life as the lady of the house. The music was soft, and the sunlight warmed the rooms she now called hers. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. Lami walked over, curious but confident. When she opened, she saw 3 serious-looking men in official uniform. They wore badges and carried papers. It was clear they were not ordinary visitors. "Good morning," one of the men said. "We are court officials. We have come to deliver an important notice." Lami smiled and crossed her arms. "You must be mistaken," she said with a laugh. "I am the widow of Seifu. This is my home now. What notice?" The men did not smile. One of them handed her a thick envelope. Inside was an eviction notice, a legal order telling her to leave the house. Lami's smile faded. She slowly pulled out the papers. The eviction notice was clear and official. Along with it was the title deed for the house. Her eyes scanned the document, and then she stopped. The owner's name was written in big, clear letters. Kemi Ayotunde. Lami's hands began to shake. Her heart pounded so loud she thought the men might hear it. The confidence she wore like a shield crumbled in seconds. "How is this possible?" she whispered, almost to herself. "I thought the house belonged to Seifu. To me." One of the officials looked at her kindly, but firmly. "The house was never legally owned by your late husband. It belongs to Kemi Ayotunde, his mother." Lami's mind raced. All the parties she had thrown, the laughter, the plans, were they all built on a lie? The house she had celebrated in was not hers to keep. Tears welled up in her eyes. She felt lost, confused, and angry, but deep down, she knew there was no way to fight the law. The men told her she had 30 days to move out. Lami nodded slowly, her world shaken, but still silent. She closed the door gently behind them. Word of the eviction notice spread fast through the village. People whispered in markets and on street corners. Some felt sorry for Lami. Others said she had brought this upon herself by pushing Kemi away. Lami sat alone in the big house that was no longer hers. For the first time, she understood the price of forgetting who truly owned what, and the cost of disrespecting those who built it. The house was quiet now, but soon it would be a place of new beginnings, for Kemi, the real owner, and for everyone ready to believe in fairness and respect. As soon as the news about the eviction reached the village, it spread like wildfire. People talked everywhere, at the market, at the well, and under the big mango tree where the elders met. Everyone had an opinion, and the village buzzed with whispers and gossip. Some villagers shook their heads and said, Kemi should not have taken the house back. That was her son's home. She should have let Lami live there in peace. They believed it was wrong for a mother to fight her daughter-in-law over a house. The elders even called a meeting to discuss the situation. They wanted to find out if Kemi's actions were fair or if she had gone too far. At the meeting, some older men spoke loudly. She thought the crown was hers, one elder said, meaning Kemi believed she was the queen of the house. Another elder nodded, but the house was where her son lived. She should have shown kindness, not fight for walls. Meanwhile, others whispered about Lami. They remembered how, after the funeral, she never visited Sefu's grave. She did not even cry properly. Some said quietly, how can she call herself a widow when she never respected her husband? Despite all the talking, Kemi stayed calm and quiet. She heard the words but did not answer. She did not want to argue or create more problems. Revenge was not what she wanted. She wanted peace. Peace for herself and peace for the memory of her son. She thought about how life had changed so much. The house was just a building, but it held memories, some happy, some painful. It was not about the walls or the rooms. It was about respect and dignity. Kemi smiled softly to herself and said, let them talk. I will not fight with words. I will live with honor and kindness. In her heart, Kemi knew she had done the right thing. She had stood up for what was hers, but she had done it quietly and with respect. She had not let anger or bitterness take control. The village continued to buzz with gossip, but slowly, people began to see a different side of Kemi. Not a woman who wanted power or revenge, but a mother who only wanted to protect what was rightfully hers and to find peace in a difficult time. And while the voices around her grew louder, Kemi's calmness spoke louder still. It showed that sometimes true strength is not in shouting or fighting, but in standing firm with a peaceful heart. After the court's decision, everyone expected Kemi to make Lami leave the house quickly. The village waited for a big fight or harsh words. But Kemi surprised everyone. She did something nobody saw coming. Instead of telling Lami to pack and leave, Kemi called her over one quiet afternoon. Lami came, her face still full of pride, but also worry. She had lost everything, including control of the house. Kemi looked at her gently and said, Lami, you can stay in the house, but there is one condition. Lami blinked, unsure if she had heard right. Kemi continued, you must open this home to widows like me, women who have lost their husbands and are struggling. This house will become a safe place for them to live, to heal, and to find hope. The village was shocked when they heard the news. Kemi, the woman everyone thought would be angry and vengeful, was offering kindness and a chance to help others. This was not just about the house anymore. It was about something bigger, a new beginning for many women. Lami was quiet. She had lost pride, money, and respect. Now she had to accept help and share the house she thought was hers alone. But she agreed. She knew she had no choice. She was humble and broken. At first, living together was not easy. Old hurts and silence filled the rooms. But slowly, the house began to change. Kemi worked with Mama Ereti and her lawyer friend Tarela to bring widows from the village and nearby towns. Women who had nowhere to go found a safe place. They cooked, cleaned, shared stories, and supported each other. Lami saw the pain these women carried and began to understand what Kemi had felt. Day by day, the house filled with new life, not just with memories of loss, but with laughter, hope, and friendship. It became a center where women helped each other grow stronger. Lami's bitterness slowly melted away. She stopped thinking only of herself and started caring for the women around her. She volunteered to cook, clean, and listen. The same woman who once kicked Kemi out was now part of a healing family. Kemi watched quietly, proud but humble. She had not only reclaimed her house, but had turned it into a place of kindness and strength. The lesson was clear. True power is in forgiveness and giving, not in control or revenge. The village began to speak differently about Kemi and Lami. They talked about how two women, once enemies, had built something beautiful together. Kemi's unexpected offer had changed everything. It was not just about a house anymore. It was about hope, healing, and a new family built from pain. And this was only the beginning. Kemi's journey did not end when she got her house back. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. With the help of Tarela, the young lawyer who believed in her, and Mama Ireti, the kind-hearted matron who had welcomed her, Kemi started a new project called the House of Ayatunde. This was not just any home. It was a safe place for women who, like her, had lost their husbands and felt abandoned by the world. The House of Ayatunde became a center where grieving women could come to heal. They shared their stories, supported each other, and found new strength to live again. Kemi's own pain turned into a powerful force to help others, and slowly she rebuilt her own worth, not just as a mother, but as a leader and a woman who never gave up. Lami, who once was proud and cold-hearted, changed too. She became the most committed volunteer at the House of Ayatunde. She helped cook, clean, and listen to the women who came for help. It was a surprising change, but one that showed how kindness and forgiveness could change even the hardest hearts. The house that once whispered sorrow now echoed with laughter and hope. It was filled with stories of healing and new beginnings. What had been a place of pain became a home full of life. Kemi was never just a guest in her own home. She was the foundation, the strong base that held everything together. Her story was no longer about loss or being pushed away. It was about rising from the ashes and building a legacy that would last. In the village and beyond, people began to talk about the House of Ayatunde as a symbol of strength and kindness. Kemi's journey from being cast out to becoming a legacy builder inspired many. This was a story of courage, love, and the power of forgiveness. Kemi showed that even when life knocks you down, you can rise again and help others do the same. The house was more than just walls and a roof. It was a home for hope. If you found Kemi's story powerful and inspiring, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends and family, and let's spread hope and strength together. Hit that like button if you believe in rising above pain, and don't forget to subscribe.